Hello my dear students of grade 5. Today we will complete the lesson we were talking about the light. Now we will begin our lesson. Now, we discussed before the first property for light, that light travels in what? Light travels in straight line. And we said many experiments to prove that light travels in straight line. Today we will discuss that light transmits through different material. Means that light can pass through different materials. Now, materials can be classified according to their ability to transmit light. Means I can classify the material around us according to the ability how they can transmit light. Now, we will begin with the first type of material, which is the transparent material. The what? The transparent materials. What's meant by transparent materials? They are materials which allow most of the light to pass through it. Let us see these examples. Now, this clear glass. Now, I have this glass, this clear glass, and I have this torch as a source of light. Now, if I focus the torch on a source or on the piece of glass, you can see the light in the opposite direction clearly. So, clear glass is considered as a transparent material. What's meant by transparent material? It allows most of the light to pass through it. It allows most of the light to pass through it. Now, also, it allows most of the light to pass through it, and objects can be seen clearly. What's mean? If I put my hand as an object, you can see my hand clearly? Yes, you can see my hand clearly through the glass. So, transparent materials, for example, clear glass, it allows most of the light, for example, the torch, it allows most of the light to pass through it, and also objects like my hand can be seen clearly. You can see my hand clearly. Through this glass. So I have another example. The air. The air is around us in every place. The air is. You can see this torch clearly. The light of the torch clearly. Why? Because the air is a transparent materials that allow most of the light to pass through it. Also my hand and myself, you can see me clear. Why? Because air allow most of the light to pass through it, and object can be seen clearly. Also the clear water, this water here. I have this clear water. I will put this water in the glass. If this clear water, also if you focus a light on it, you can see the light clearly. Also, this piece of transparent plastic, this is a transparent plastic. This transparent plastic, if I focus on it, a piece of light, you can see the light clearly. Also, you can see my hand, this is my hand, you can see it clearly. So what's meant by a transparent material? I will repeat again. What's meant by a transparent material? The transparent materials are materials that allow most of the light to pass through it, and objects can be seen through it clearly. This is the what? This is the transparent materials. Okay, I will go to other materials. I classify the materials into three main categories. Number one, the transparent material. Number two, the semi-transparent or the translucent material. The semi-transparent or the translucent materials. What's meant by semi-transparent or translucent? They are materials allow some of the light to pass through it. Some light can pass through it, and objects can be seen through them, but less clearly. But what? Less clearly. Now, this roasted glass, this glass are not so much clear. So it allows some of the light to pass through it. This tissue paper. Now, if I bring this tissue paper, here I have this a tissue paper. This tissue paper, and I focus on it a piece of light. You can see the light, but not so much clear like when I focus it on a transparent material. So, the semi-transparent or the translucent materials are materials that allow some of the light to pass through it. Some of the light to pass through it. An object can be seen through them, but less clearly. If I put my hands behind the tissue, you will notice that, yes, you can see my hand. Yes, but of course, less clear than the transparent material. If I put my hands behind the tissue, you can see my hand, but less clear. You can see my hand, but less clearly. So, now, the semi-transparent or the translucent material. What's meant by semi-transparent or translucent material? Materials that allow some of the light to pass through it. An object can be seen through them, but less clearly. Less what? Less clearly. Now, the third type of materials that I have, which is the opaque material, which is what? The opaque material, which is what? The opaque material. What's meant by opaque? Materials that does not allow the light to pass through them. Now, if I can see this, if I can see this piece of wood, this is a piece of wood, and I focus the torch on it, a source of light. Here I have this torch. Can you see the torch behind this piece of wood? No, you can't see the light. Why? Because the wood is an opaque material. Is what? Opaque material that does not allow the light to pass through it. Also, the rocks. The rocks also is an opaque material. Now, also this piece of carton that I have, this piece of carton, if I focus the light, the source of light behind, you cannot see the source of light. Why? Because it is an opaque material. Also, I have the foil paper. This foil paper. If I focus the light behind the foil paper, you cannot see the source of light. Why? Because this foil paper is an opaque material. What's meant by opaque material? They are materials that does not allow the light to pass through it. Now, if I put my hand behind this piece of wood, you can see my hand, also you cannot see my hand. So object cannot be seen through them, and also object cannot be seen through them. So this is the definition or the meaning of the opaque material. So what's the opaque material? The opaque materials are materials that does not allow the light to pass through them. An object, for example, like my hands, cannot be seen through them. Now, I have here a note. What is this note? Opaque materials are used to cover windows of a darkened photographic room because light does not pass. This opaque material, if you see any films or movie, you find that the photographic room is all dark. So all the windows of the photographic room for making films are covered by opaque material. Covered by what? Opaque material, because it does not allow any light to pass through them. So this is an important note. The opaque material are used to what? To cover the windows of darkened photographic rooms. Why? Because it never allows the light to transmit through it. So now I will repeat again. Light transmit through different materials. We said I have three main materials, or I'll classify the materials into three main categories. Number one, I have the transparent material. I said what's meant by transparent material? Like the glass or the air or the water or the plastic. They are materials that allow the light to pass through them. An object can be seen through them clearly. Object can be seen through them clearly. Number two of the material, I have the semi-transparent or the translucent material, which allows some of the light to pass through them. I said, for example, the piece of tissue. This piece of tissue, yes, you can see my hand behind the piece of tissue, but not so much clearly. So, material that allows some of the light to pass through them. An object also can be seen through them, but less clearly. But what? Less clearly. Number three, I have the opaque materials. What's meant by opaque materials? Materials that does not allow the light. For example, this piece of wood. You can see my hand behind this piece of wood? No, you cannot see. So the opaque materials are materials that does not allow the light to pass through them, and objects cannot be seen. So where these opaque materials are used to cover the windows of the darkened photographic room. Of the darkened what? Of the darkened photographic room, because light never transmits through it. So I have three main materials, we discussed this. Now you have this evaluation question. So now, before I'm talking about the evaluation question, this is the second property of light. I discussed before the first property of light, which is that the light travels through straight lines. Now, the second property of light, that light transmits through different materials, and I classify the materials into three main categories: transparent materials, semi-transparent or translucent materials, and opaque material. And this is the second property for light. Now I will discuss with you the evaluation question. Now, materials that we can see object less clearly through are called what? What are the materials that we can see but less clearly? That we give an example like this piece of tissue. I can see my hand behind this piece of tissue but less clearly. What is this materials called? These materials are called semi-transparent or the translucent materials. The semi-transparent or the translucent materials. So, I will repeat again. I classified the material into three main categories. The transparent material that light can pass and I can see the object very clearly. The semi-transparent or the translucent, which the object are seen but less clearly. The opaque materials that I cannot see anything behind it. And this is your homework question. Give reason. Our bodies are opaque material. Why our body are opaque material? Because what? Because what? Why our bodies are opaque? And this is your homework question. Try to answer why our body are opaque. Because light what? And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy the lesson. Thank you.